So the three things to consider when buying a property in South Africa, especially if you're a first-time home buyer. And people will address this very often, so you'll be able to get everyone's different opinion on what the three things are. But the reality is that first, we're having a conversation around choosing the property. So let's not have a conversation now about the legalities and what to put in the contracts, because we're not even there yet. And so the answer to this question really lies in, maybe the buyer is actually lying on the couch and he's thinking to himself, why would I buy a property in South Africa? What property would I buy in South Africa? And it all comes down to the property itself. Now, the first thing that one needs to consider is, what type of property does one actually want to buy? And is this a lifestyle? Is it an investment property? And it's a very important question, because trying to select the property that you want to buy and what you want to do with it is crucial. Property values in the lifestyle space are a lot higher than property values actually in the investment space, believe it or not. Because in the lifestyle space, people buy it with the intention of living there and having certain amenities that you wouldn't ordinarily have. So, and you're paying for those amenities. So if you're living on this property, the reality is part of the price that you're paying is to cover the cost and the luxury of having those amenities. So you do have to ask yourself the question, is that something you want to buy and pay for? Or actually, is it more affordable to rent a property and have access to those amenities and rather buy investment property elsewhere that makes money? And so that's very, very important. The first thing that we need to remember is the fact that you could turn this into an investment property doesn't mean that it has to be an investment property right now. Why I'm having this conversation is so a buyer starts thinking long-term, because this will impact the next two things that I'm going to speak about. So when you're buying into a property, is it just to live in, or is it to live in for now, keep for later, maybe rent out for later? A lifestyle property, there's many different types of lifestyle properties. And again, that's going to be the next conversation when we start speaking about the relationships and the different options that a person has when it comes to lifestyle versus rental properties. But I think the first point to consider is what type of long-term investment, because even buying a property to live in is an investment. So what sort of long-term investment are you looking to make? And is it simply just to allow yourself to live somewhere nice, or are you actually looking to buy something that in the long term could actually render a form of return? So that's consideration number one, right? Once you've got this idea and you've it's about getting your head in the right place. The second consideration, and this is also quite important, is if you're buying this property, what are the dynamics of these type of properties? So are you looking to buy sectional title? Are you looking to buy freehold, right? Now, why this makes a huge difference is how the relationships within these type of properties are governed. Your relationship with your neighbors, your relationships with the body corporates, your relationship with the HOA. That's again very crucial. So first-time home buyer, don't get caught by surprise when looking to buy a property and simply looking at price first, landing up buying a property, for example, in a sectional scheme, and realizing that you've got two neighbors right next door to each other and one on top of you, with such an intensively small space that you cannot do anything. And so again, lifestyle, if you're buying for lifestyle, is that the sort of lifestyle that you're looking to buy? And this is where you start looking at the structure of the type of property. So maybe it's a great investment. Maybe, you're having this conversation with the agent that says, no, so many people rent out in this complex. Don't worry, you can live here and soon you're going to move out and you can put any tenant in there. Question is this the place that you want to live in? Is this a long-term, is this something long-term that you want to invest in? And again, when it comes to things like body corporates and homeowners association, what these mean is these are a group of individuals that kind of pool together in order to make life easier for the whole. So again, as a comparison I made the other day, in a government, we've appointed certain government officials to make decisions on our behalf and to govern the greater things, so that we don't need to worry about policing and roads and that sort of thing, because we've handed over this power to a group of individuals that are qualified to be able to deal with those affairs. Now, similarly with body corporates and homeowners association, that's exactly what you're doing. And so maybe they want to have special roads in the sectional scheme. So you hand it over to a body of persons that are going to govern this. They're going to have maintenance plans and budgets and finances and bank accounts. So you don't need to worry about it as an owner. And in exchange, you pay something for it. And this is where, again, I have to warn first-time home buyers. When you're sitting on your couch considering what sort of property you want to buy, and after you've decided the investment lifestyle, you now also need to ask yourself, is this something that you're willing to do? Are you willing to put yourselves in the hands of others? Or do you just simply want to buy a property, be on your own, have your own space, not have neighbors that are encroaching and very close next to you, be able to make your own decisions? Also bearing in mind that, remember, just because a body corporate today is doing financially well doesn't mean that tomorrow it's going to be doing financially well. So again, as a first-time buyer, please don't fall into the trap of thinking, oh, it's a great scheme, great properties, I'm just going to buy it because it's a great investment. Because you will have to actively ensure that that body corporate runs functionally, because if everyone takes their foot off the pedal and stops looking around and seeing what's happening around them, you will inevitably find that this body corporate eventually go bankrupt or do something wrong. So very important, financials speak about last year. So whatever financials you have are not an indication of current performance, are not an indication of future performance, they're an indication of past performance. So due diligence, very important, but it's not definitive. You actually need to go and do your own inspections as at that day to make sure that things are being maintained properly, that the funds are available, and that the occupiers in the sectional scheme can actually speak well of the sectional scheme. Very, very important. So the third one is a very common one, and this is not going to surprise anyone at all, but it is vital that everyone keep this in mind. And still, while sitting on your couch, you do need to ask yourself, what sort of property do you want to buy from a condition perspective? Now, obviously, you're sitting on your couch, so you don't know what these properties actually look like, but one has to realize that the age of the area is normally, not always, but normally indicative of the age of the property. So you'd be able, when scrolling and trying to find a property that you're interested in, now you've made a decision that you want to buy an investment property that you can let out later. You've made the decision that you don't want a sectional scheme. Maybe you want a freehold property, and now you're scrolling. So the next question is, what sort of property are you willing to buy, knowing the problems related to older properties? Again, this is something that people forget about, and it's exactly the same with vehicles. Buying a second-hand vehicle sounds like a great idea. Why not? It's a lot cheaper than a new vehicle. Why would I buy a new vehicle when I can pay half the price for a second-hand vehicle? And the answer to that question is second-hand vehicles, first-hand vehicles, or new vehicles rather, are new, right? So everything is designed to at least last 5 to 7 years, because most of them come with maintenance plans, which guarantee that things will last 5 to 7 years. So the products are designed for 5 to 7 years. So you can almost ensure that half that you're paying extra versus the cost of the repairs that you're going to be paying, it has to make sense to you. So if you feel that the cost of the repairs are going to be a lot less than the price that you're paying for a new vehicle, sure, then go for the second-hand one. But if there's the risk that you're going to pay a lot more in repairs, then why are you buying the second-hand vehicle when you could buy the new vehicle? And it's the same with properties. You're buying a property, and this comes back down to when you're negotiating price, how you're going to approach the negotiation of price. But the truth is, older properties probably sell for less simply because they're older. They don't have modern finishings. They probably have older pipes, for example, that need to be replaced at some point or another, whatever the case is, right? So it's also very important that in your selection process, when you're making this decision on which property that you're going to buy, that you consider things like age, because the next conversation is obviously around the condition of the property when you buy it and what you're willing to pay for the property based on those three factors, because those three factors will speak about price. And the following week, we can then have a conversation on how we connect those three factors to the next things to consider, which is what can I afford to buy based on my wants and needs, and what do I need to adjust in the property selection in order to be able to make it affordable so that I can actually buy it and pay cash for it and it makes financial sense.